afternoon, everyone, and happy Monday. Welcome to Stock Market Today. You have Alyssa Corum and Justin Nielsen here to break down the action in today's session, which we saw strong gains across the board, Justin. So a lot of interesting action. And underneath the surface, we're going to take a look at some key movers. What do you have for us?
Yeah, so today, such strength and energy. So we'll take a look at one stock that I thought looked very different from a lot of the other energy stocks, and that was Callon Petroleum, ticker symbol CPE. So we'll take a look at that one. And in the same vein, in the financial area, a lot of strength there, but one that looked, particularly interesting to me was Charles Schwab, symbol SCHW. And then this is not something I normally do, but I'm going to have to take a look at the REITs and XLRE today, which is the Sector Spider Real Estate Fund.
Okay, well, you better give us a good reason why, Justin. But just messing with you. Let's take a look at the major indexes. Here's the S&P 500, a nice move off of the 50-day moving average, gaining 1.4% today. The Nasdaq, which we had seen this shift in leadership to, actually had the smallest gain of the day, up 0.8%. The Dow up 1.8%, and the Russell 2000 up 2%. So a lot of strength across the board today, Justin, when at the end of last week, things were looking a little touch and go for a number of the major indexes.
Yeah, and while you say the strength was across the board, what was really interesting about today is where it was. There were these areas that got hit so hard last week, especially on Thursday. I'm talking about, the energy, the financials, the industrials. We had the Dow Jones Industrials get back below its 50-day moving average line, and that was kind of bouncing today. So you had a lot of this weakness that was showing up last week, and the Nasdaq was looking stronger. Here again, it just reversed, and it was the opposite of what we were seeing on that Thursday. So it just like since we're going to be talking about real estate later, instead of location, I feel like right now it's rotation.
That you're right. So not dead yet, even though we got a bunch of sell signals last week with a number of stocks breaking below their 50-day moving averages in a big way. But there's still some stocks in those groups that are holding up better than others.
Yeah, and this is where it's a really good idea to kind of, when you're looking at a group that's really strong, to kind of really look under the surface and say, okay, what stocks are particularly strong or showing action that's a little bit different and maybe better. And that's what put CPE, Callon Petroleum, on my radar. Because again, if you went through a lot of the oil stocks, just look at OIH ETF or XOP, for example. They have a very similar look, all these stocks. You look at where it was on Thursday, that dramatic drop on Thursday, and how it was just starting to get into that kind of range, for a lot of these stocks. But then if you look at CPE just looked very different to me in that it was crossing above Thursday's high. So this was something that was showing a lot more strength relative to that Thursday action where we saw such a downdraft in the oil area and energy. So the fact that it was doing this, I look at that as a sign of relative strength. And so CPE was actually something that went on Swing Trader today. And we actually took off our first third at the end of the day with a 5% profit from where we put it on.
Well, great job on that. And you can see just incredibly strong fundamentals as noted by a relative strength line that is quite impressive and a relative strength rating. So Justin, we have the oil and gas exploration group still ranked number 2 out of 197 for now. So do you think that this is still a pond that investors should be fishing in, even though if you look at some of those ETFs, like you said, the group as a whole, not maybe performing quite as well as it was a couple weeks ago?
I mean, the fact is, cyclicals and commodities, they're kind of a different animal. It's a little unusual that you actually have the earnings growth already, for some of these. So, and again, with this rotation that's been going on, look, I was knocked out of a bunch of my oil holdings last week on Thursday, and they just were looking like the exposure was not something I was happy about. I was taking some hits and I had to trim back. So here again, it's going to be one of those situations where, is this going to be rotation that's happening, daily or every couple days? It's really hard to play a trend when the trend is only lasting a couple days. So I think the jury's still out here, but it was notable, at least for a short-term trade. I think that there might be, some opportunities here. And again, more than anything, I wanted people to kind of get a sense of that look. When you see something that looks different, when you see something that diverges, that should really get your attention. And for CPE, in this case, it was the strength that it was showing relative to that Thursday action versus a lot of the other members in the group. And so whether it's oil or anything else, when you notice that kind of stuff, it's worth potentially taking action on.
Right. Well, perhaps a similar lesson with Charles Schwab. So here is the XLF ETF, a big break of its 10-week moving average last week after a strong run, but moving up again today. You said strength in energy, in financials, in industrials. And now let's take a look at SCHW, Charles Schwab, which saw a nice bounce off of its 50-day line today. It closed below the 50-day on Friday, but not by much.
Yeah, so in a similar way, again, if you look at this, Thursday's action on this one wasn't too bad, right? You had it pretty much retracing a lot of Wednesday's action. I mean, Wednesday, look, after the Fed meeting came out and the strength, you saw that strength just really shoot up. And we talked about this on Wednesday after the Fed meeting, how it just looked like a lot of these financial stocks were set up. And then Thursday was so disappointing. But as ugly as a lot of those financial stocks got, as you just saw in XLF, Schwab really did hold up fairly well. And so even though it did come down to its 50-day moving average line, it got support, it bounced, and where it is relative to that Thursday action just seems, again, stronger in Schwab than a lot of the other financial areas. Now, granted, a lot of the financial areas that we were looking at were the regional banks and some of the money centers, the super regionals. And Schwab is different in that regard. It's a brokerage. But again, when you're seeing something happen in an entire sector and then something is sticking out, I just thought Schwab was another one worth taking notice.
Right. And volume behind the move to the upside today.
Right.
All right. And now let's take a look at XLRE, a REIT, which, Justin, first off, tell us why. We'll get to the technical action here in a second, but why don't we focus on REITs typically?
REITs, I mean, for a lot of, and just for people that don't know, REITs are real estate investment trusts. So it's basically a way for you to kind of be a landlord, right? And a lot of times in commercial property, things like that, where they put something in a trust. And what people are generally looking for is really the income. Right, there's the income that comes. They tend to have large dividends. That's what you're looking at in terms of, instead of earnings, it's that. What do they return to you as an investor on those properties as they're collecting those rents and everything? And so a lot of times you don't expect much capital appreciation, which kind of turns on the head of what we're normally doing, right? We don't normally care so much about the dividend. We want to see that capital appreciation. If there's a dividend, great. We're not going to say no to extra money, but it's that capital appreciation that we're looking for. But sometimes you will get, in the REITs, you'll get kind of the best of both worlds, where you will have this nice sizable yield that's happening. And again, that's what you're getting, that return quarterly as a dividend. And you can also get some of this capital appreciation too. So again, you can have the best of both worlds. And the yields on some of these are, they tend to be higher than your typical growth stocks, because that's what they're there for, right? As kind of an income play. So, one that kind of stuck out to me was, SPG. But the fact is, I just noticed that as I was going down and looking through my screens of stocks that were setting up, it just seemed like a lot of REITs were popping up. So SPG was one, and they have a lot of malls. I know that there's a few malls here that are around where Simon Property is the one that owns them. But it wasn't just Simon Property. It was a lot of these stocks that had very similar setups. And again, I think it's just an area to watch and take note of, that these setups are happening in a very similar way. in a lot of these REITs.
And in our industry group analysis this morning on IBD Live, we did touch on REITs moving up in the industry group rankings, now 46 out of 197. So always good to keep track on group improvement. And that's showing up in the numbers here for REITs. So this reversal at the 21-day line for the Spider Real Estate ETF, a way to play the group.
Right, exactly. Now, while I'm talking about a lot of the stuff that was strong today, I just want to end this by saying I don't want to discount the Nasdaq composite here. That was the laggard index today, but that was still a pretty good gain. So I'm not counting out necessarily that strength that we were seeing in software. You did see some pullbacks in some of those areas, but I still think that overall the trend has been favoring the Nasdaq lately. So it's just a matter of, was this kind of a one-day thing where it was behind a little bit the other indexes, or is this something that's going to be shifting a little bit more? So we'll have to wait and see on that, but I'm sure you'll be covering all of this in future Stock Market Today videos.
We'll be covering it. Yes, Justin. We'll see how the week unfolds. Thanks for that analysis, and thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow morning on IBD Live with more. We hope you tune in, investors.com/IBD Live. That's it from us. We'll see you back here tomorrow.